lone man dances circles round the subterranean gloom, paints pink and blue and purple until he fills the room with the smell of roses and a pandemonium moon. Comes wind, weaves the night, violin, wolf song. Comes wind, weaves the night, violin, wolf song. Mama killed chickens. She popped their heads off, put her foot on the little yellow hen's head, grabbed its legs, and jerked hard. The hen just laid there on the grass while the little chicken body went flopping all over the yard. Us kids ran like crazy, dodging chicken blood. I liked it better when Mama took the .22 rifle to the barn and would shoot a little hen off the high rafter up near the top of the barn where the chickens all roosted. Mama was a good shot. One Christmas Eve, there was a terrible storm. Daddy was off at the mines. Mama said, "Come on." And all us kids piled in the back of the pickup truck. Mama had the shotgun. We drove slow through the storm with Mama looking all around. Then she pulled over and said, "Come on." We followed. We walked a ways until we came up on a tree, a cedar tree, and Mama said, "Get behind me." We did, and she took aim and shot the tree in the trunk with both barrels, bullet clean in two. Mama said, "Y'all get the Christmas tree and come on." Us kids let out a yell. We were so happy because Christmas had finally come. That's a true story. Have any of you ever seen your mother shoot a Christmas tree with a double-barrel shotgun? Anybody? I didn't think so. Music saved my life and Jesus saved my soul. The impossible dream. Just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me. We were a gospel quartet, Muscle, Tim, Slim, and me, singing our hearts out. The impossible dream. Sunday morning service at the Centertown Baptist Church. After the preaching, and just as I am, Sage came up and smiled and said, "Boys, that was sure good." And she added, laughing real loud, and "Bone, you sure are animated." And then Wanda Lou chimed in with, "Yes, that was fine, but Bone, you were flat." And oh my, oh my, oh my, I went home swearing I'd never sing again. And I didn't until I got in the car, turned on the radio, and heard Elvis crooning about some old Kentucky back roads. And I caught myself breaking my promise, singing. So what if I was flat as a pancake? Music had saved my life more than once, and I knew then, as I knew before and after, that I'd never abandon song. I'd never quit listening to the gift of God, sweet music. And even if I couldn't in public, at least in private, I'd keep on singing. And well, us boys, Muscle, Tim, Slim, and me, well, I believe all our lives were saved more than once by music, and I mean every kind of music. We heard it all, church music and funeral dirges, as Mama and her sister Jody Bell sang far back as I can remember. I see people climbing on coffins, including Pappy, trying to keep Mammy from leaving him behind, her lying there in the pine. Yes, we heard gospel and blues, and we heard country, mixed with traditional folk mountain Appalachian, going back to Ireland and Scotland and Wales. And we listened to Jimmy Rogers and Hank Williams and Woody Guthrie and Raymond Render and Mose Rager and the Montgomery Brothers and Brother Matthews Gospel Quartet with Mrs. Jones banging on that piano like I'd never heard in no Baptist church. And I got excited. Oh, Lord, can music make you feel this good? Brought tears to my boy eyes and made goosebumps run all up and down my back and all over my body. Made my flat top hair stand up straight and tall without no butch wax on it. And then came Elvis, and my parents said, "Turn it off," but they were glued to. Couldn't move, eyes staring in disbelief, but excited like, what in the world is this? And seemed like everybody felt that way, more excited than ashamed, wanting to be part of that energy that we all know somehow, like music itself must be a gift from some greater source. And we all mourned his passing, but I'm jumping ahead, because for our generation, Bob Dylan and the Beatles did it too, and in Slim's yellow Volkswagen traveling through one-lane Ohio County bridges at the speed of light with windows down, we kept the stereo loud as it would go, because we loved music, because whenever we had to turn from the pain of life, the suffering of living, we always turned to music, as if music redirected us towards God, as if music came from God. And every time we turned to music, life became bearable again. We thought about resurrection again. We thought about Jesus again. And that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come, I come. Yeah! Woo! ivory towers, academic stuff. Jasper Joyce. When they turned off Main Street onto the winding lane that led to the tent, his dad turned the Chevy's lights off and said, "Don't say anything." He called himself Bone Boy and his brother Muscle Boy. His brother was a miniature of his dad, who instead of Edwin could have been called Hercules. His dad was tall and solid as rock. He believed in physical discipline, so when he told his boys to do something, they did it. The light was bright inside the tent. The door was open wide to let in air. The night was hot, and Bone imagined that it was hotter inside. Most of the people inside had walked. There were only a few cars outside the tent. They pulled up close. It was a moonless, starless night, so they weren't seen as they parked. His father's father, Jasper, Pappy, was standing at the microphone on the podium. His dad turned the car off. Jasper was preaching. "But he that believeth not shall be damned, and these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." Jasper was a coal miner, a farmer, and a holy roller preacher. He was built like a hinged stone. The inner lights reflecting off the green canvas tent cast a green glow about him. Or was he casting the glow? If not casting, he was certainly digging for something hidden, pausing deep in this green cavern to proclaim, "Was I wrong? Does this path not lead to the light? But the light blinds my eyes if I seek it in the mountains. No, I must go down into the dark. Eternal peace lies there. Heavy hammer, break me the way to the heart chamber of what lies hidden there." Jasper's voice was getting louder. He was beginning to shout. Something Bone didn't understand was happening. He got a bitter taste in his mouth as he watched his grandfather lose control. Jasper was shouting louder and louder and becoming animated like Bone had never seen him. He imagined the bitter iron taste to be the water Jasper told Bone he drank that seeped from the walls deep in the mines. A wailing, moaning sound came from a little woman near the back of the crowded tent. Before her moan ended, another began, and then another and another, echoing through the tent, escaping out to Bone and Muscle and their dad, through them, out into the dark night. In the midst of the wailing, a man shouted, and then another and another, until all the men were shouting, all the women wailing. And now a child's voice sang out in the chaos. Now more children, a chorus. Everyone stands, some on chairs. Now guitar joins in. Now two, now three guitars. People begin to move, to shift and sway. Now Bone hears a piano, now a tambourine. The wailing, shouting, singing, playing grows louder and louder, stirring the night. The swaying turns to swooping. Dogs bark, then howl. Lights in Centertown flash on. Windows and doors open and heads peek out. Visions of the second coming dance in Bone's head. He stares fixedly into the tent, nearly hypnotized. An old man swooping is turned into hopping. Another swooper becomes a hopper, then another. Women and children start hopping too. Bone doesn't understand the shouting. What words are these? Strange, unfamiliar. He doesn't recognize any of them. A young woman falls down and starts rolling in the dirt, jabbering strange words. Others fall and roll. Everyone is swooping and hopping and rolling, shouting and wailing and singing unknown sounds and words. Woven with the reckless music, a dark figure appears from the back of the tent, carrying a large black box. The figure approaches Jasper, who is hopping and shouting on the podium. Jasper reaches into the black box and pulls out a rattlesnake. "Oh, Pappy!" And he kisses the snake on its mouth. "Oh, my Pappy!" Bone screams inside himself, swaying and swooping and hopping and rolling and shouting and wailing and singing louder and louder and wilder and wilder. The dark figure weaves the black box to men and women who take snakes, rattlers, copperheads, water moccasins from the box and perform the Jasper snake kiss. Bone sees a man who looks like he swallowed his tongue. He is the tongue swallower. He makes no sound. He is rigid, white as a ghost, foaming at the mouth. Bone's dad starts the car and, without turning on the lights, drives away. The morning sky was sulfur blue, except for an elongated gray-brown cloud on the horizon where smoke gently rose from the smokestacks at the TVA power plant outside the ghost town of Paradise. The yellow-veined sky, along with a sense of anticipation and excitement, made the air seem electric. 144 nervous and laughing participants were gathered, not only from Beaver Dam in Hartford, the county seat 2 miles away, but from the smaller communities of Rosine, Bill Monroe's hometown, Horse Branch, Cronos, Eccles, Fordsville, Dundee, Ross's Riffle, Rockport, Centertown, Matanzas, Narrow, Snow Hill, Haytie, Lone Star, and from the outlying ramshackle countryside farms and coal fields of Ohio County, as well as from all over the state of Kentucky. There were even a few outsiders. Moxley and Irene, several miles southwest of Centertown, deep in the bottoms where the bobcats still lived, on a tight curve of Green River, the deepest river in the world, lived in a wicked, crooked dirt hut old Moxley and his wife Irene. The island, called Toad's Island, rose above the green. It had flooded only once back in '37. Moxley's parents had come from Hungary and Irene's from Greece in the 1800s. When Bone was a boy, he visited Moxley and Irene from time to time with Daddy or Granddaddy Dick. They would stop by after running trot lines. Some city people might call them trout lines, but they never caught no trout on them. They caught catfish, turtles, snakes, and eels. Moxley and Irene had an orchard and a garden, but Moxley always said he lived on snake, snapping turtle, possum, and moonshine whiskey. Bone saw him eating and drinking all of them more than once, and with his big red and purple nose, Bone figured he was telling the truth. He kept his moonshine still right in front of his hut. They had a one-eyed black cat with no tail called Spit and a three-legged dog called Tick. Irene was probably a witch, but a decent one, and by the time Bone knew her, she may have forgotten most of what she once knew. One evening late after sunset, Granddaddy Dick and Bone were gliding down river back to his car. They'd run the line and been to visit Moxley and Irene, and as always, they had stayed longer than they'd planned. Granddaddy Dick was drinking whiskey. Moxley had given him out of the jug he kept in the bottom of the boat, and he was chasing it with beer. He always talked more when he was drinking, but there was something odd about Granddaddy Dick. He never really talked too much, but it always seemed like he said a lot more than he actually did. His stories had a way of setting you to thinking. Bone found himself inside some of his stories, and the next thing he knew, Granddaddy Dick was adding stuff, and his story became real and just kind of took off down the road all on its own, and sometimes Bone would have to run and catch up or get left behind. Anyway, they were gliding down the river to his car, and Granddaddy Dick said, "Far back as I know, Moxley and Irene only been off that island once, went into Centertown one day. Moxley bought a little mirror, first time he'd ever seen one. He slipped it in his coat pocket, but Irene saw him, and one day, not long after their trip, Moxley went fishing for snapping turtles, and Irene slipped the mirror out of his pocket. She was furious. The nerve of that man carrying the picture of an old woman in his pocket and him married. She threw the mirror as hard as she could at the fireplace and broke it into 1,000 pieces." Okay, I'm just going to read a couple more pieces, and then we're going to talk a bit. On this sunny summer Saturday, second half of 20th century, July 14th, late morning, in the sleepy little mining farming community of Beaver Dam, the center of Ohio County, located in the western reaches of the lusciously green and morbidly black state of Kentucky, the week-long centennial celebration was climaxing with many events: games, races, a parade, a carnival, and what turned out to be the most ominously exciting and notoriously successful event in Beaver Dam's history, in western Kentucky history. Hell, in Kentucky history, the Beaver Dam Rocking Chair Marathon. And it was. And I want to tell you all that this afternoon later at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be reading more from this new book over at the middle school, and they're going to show a film, actual footage from the event that'll play while I'm reading. But there's also, if you get a copy of the book, the guys who published it have an illustrator out of Philadelphia who has done just an incredible job of illustrating this book, and plus they got photos from the Ohio County Times and the Courier Journal. So you may recognize, or your parents may, well, some of your parents may actually be in here. But some people will recognize themselves in these photos. And the event itself, in which I participated and rocked 90 hours, actually 89 hours and 55 minutes from Saturday morning till Wednesday morning, turned into a real nightmare, as over 30 people were hauled off to the hospital before it was all said and done. A few people had some minor and major breakdowns, including myself. I think everybody who made it beyond the first few hours had some kind of a breakdown. Coal miner. There was a man in the land of coal whose name was Lucian Wallace, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him one son and one daughter. He had an old black car and a gray and white second-hand mobile home. He was a coal miner. He was a coal miner who lived a few miles out of Beaver Dam, out on Highway 69 on the road to Rochester. He lived close to his coal mine, Ken Underground, number 1. The coal miner was lean, gaunt, hollow-eyed, like he was hungry, maybe starving, like he was haunted every second of every day, of every night of his life by the thought that his mine might collapse or explode with him deep in the mine, eating lunch or digging or throwing lumps of coal at rats. He was haunted by death. He was haunted by life. He was dark, a darkling great man. The pores of his skin were filled with coal dust, so that even after his shower, when he came off shift, even after scrubbing, the dust lay deep in his pores, deep in his lungs. His eyes always watered. He could never get all the dust out of them. But for all the darkness there is light, for in his watery turquoise eyes there runs a river, a deep blue-green river filled with a golden compassion for his children, for his wife, for his mother, for life. His mother is the bootlegger. His children, his daughter Edwina and his son Carol, have been with him from the start. Carol stands facing his father. When Lucian rocks forward, Carol pops the wet washcloth in his face. When Lucian rocks back, Edwina yells, "Wake up, Daddy," in his ear. The coal mines pay little, pay better than most in this coal-barren wilderness, but they pay little, not enough for anything other than food, utilities, an old black car, and a gray and white second-hand mobile home that the wind shakes and whistles through. The coal miner has taken one of his 2 weeks annual paid vacation to try and win some money so he can take his family on the vacation he's always promised but has never been able to afford. If he can win, he'll even come in second place. He will take them on the second week of his vacation to the Gulf of Mexico, to Panama City. Okay, and one other piece I'm going to close with. Without blinking, Zen and the art of driving 100 miles per hour past Brawny, Taylor, and others on Ohio County's Highway 69, one-lane bridge between Beaver Dam and Centertown, Part 3, down and out in Kentucky, the bridge. And that's just the title. 40-page poem. I'm just kidding. It's not very long. The head must bow and the back will have to bend wherever the workers may go. A few more days and the trouble all will end in the field where the sugar canes grow. A few more days for to tote the weary load, no matter, 'twill never be light. A few more days till we totter on the road, then my old Kentucky home, good night. At 3 a.m. on a hot summer night in western Kentucky, my eyes flash open and I'm on the floor of the yellow farmhouse across the field from Mom and Dad's in the middle of nowhere. Not able to sleep, I dozed off for a second when someone turns on a light and it's blinding my eyes, and here I am at the end of time, down and out in Kentucky. Here I am wondering whether life's worth living, all the pain, and someone's turned on a light and it's blinding my eyes, and I'm a broken man buried in a tomb of self-pity. I'm failing like no others dare fail, but at 3 a.m. on this hot summer night on this plywood floor, as my eyes adjust and I see the room filled with lightning bugs coming through broken windows, and they're all around me, filling the room with golden light, and almost in a dream I see Slim, and we're in the yellow Volkswagen doing 100 on Highway 69 between Beaver Dam and Centertown, and a car's coming the other way, and Slim and I glance at each other, and in that glance I see his struggle, his fear, his anger, his defeat, his defiance, his will, his desire to succeed, his willingness to suffer, to pay the price, to see his dream become real. And we look back to the road, to Brawny Taylor's car, and we're doing 100, headed towards the one-lane bridge. And Bronny Taylor ain't slowing down, and neither are we. Eyes steady and clear, and we've seen death and been told we're crazy, but we're holding at 100. And without blinking, we meet Bronny Taylor at the center of the one-lane bridge, not a breath of air between cars and walls. And as we pass, without blinking, I see Bronny Taylor's mouth drop open and fall to his chest. And in that moment of passing, of seeing, I know that like Slim, I will pull myself up off this dirty, rotten floor and live again. Thank you all. Okay, we're going to have a question and answer period now. And I have to tell you, I noticed that, well, first of all, I got hit 2 years ago, March 30th, 96. I had just finished coaching at Freedom Hall in Kentucky, in Louisville. I just finished coaching one of my son's basketball game in the, not the street ball showdown, but the one that's in March at Inside. And we had been playing the biggest bunch of rednecks. Now, don't get me wrong, I love rednecks. I was born and raised to be one. I've got redneck written on his t-shirt right here, right above his barcode. And, but the parents, the other team won the game by 1 point. And at the end of the game, I had ignored these parents, about 5 men and 10 women, who had been yelling obscenities at both me and the players. And I believe in being the toughest competitor you can ever be. And I love sports. I played it all my life, and I was brought up rough. I mean, my dad hit me one time and knocked me about 20 feet. Didn't break anything. But this guy, I felt somebody's presence, and I turned, and all these people were standing up. These parents were standing up right in my face, and this guy, who was quite a bit bigger than me, probably weighed about 100 pounds more than me, and I'm slim. I'm thin. I'm not slim. Slim's another guy in the book. But what you're looking at here is a steel rod, okay? You can bend me, but you can't break me. Oh, you can break steel, can't you? I better take that back. Anyway, this guy looked at me and he said, "Are you looking at her?" And I hadn't looked at any of these women who were over there, but I thought, well, is there somebody over there I should be looking at? So I looked over at these women, and I looked back at him, and I kind of smiled, and I said, no. And they had won the game by 1 point on a whole lot of cheating, I thought. And when I smiled, he said, "Are you laughing at me?" And I said no, and I saw then that he was just wanting to fight. So I turned to leave because as fierce a competitor as I am, I teach good sportsmanship. In fact, at 8th grade graduation in Centertown, I was asked to give a talk on sportsmanship. And, the next thing I remember, I was trying to get up off the floor, and I felt my face, and I don't know if the guy had something in his hand or what, but my face was moved over about 2 inches and flat, broke my nose, my cheek, my jaw, permanently dislocated my jaw, and I got my mouth full of wires, which they did 2 surgeries to straighten my face up. So, and I just had my mouth rewired, and I noticed there at the end of my talk, the reason I'm bringing all this up is that I was spitting some blood on my book. It's called The Blood of the Poet. When you really care about what you're doing, you're willing to give your blood for the work. So anyway, I have no bad feelings towards this guy. My dad said that he wanted his address. He was going to take care of him for me. But I said, no, I don't want that. The guy's obviously has problems. But life goes on, and we can learn from every experience. I am real proud to come back to my home. I went to Centertown School first 9 grades, and then they consolidated here and came here in 10th grade. And it was quite a transition for me. It was a hard time for a couple years for me. And it wasn't until about my senior year that I began to pull out and regain some self-esteem. To me, the teen years, you know, some people talk about, well, I wish I could be 16 again. I've never felt that way. The teen years were really tough years for me. Some of the hardest struggles of my life. And I guarantee you, I'm not the only person in this room who went through those tough times. Some of you, I'm sure, are for different reasons. Anyway, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that if you have a dream, if you believe in something and you persevere, it doesn't matter where you're from or how you grew up, you can realize your dream. And I only have words of encouragement for anybody who has a dream, for anybody, period, but for anybody who has a dream, a goal they want to achieve. With me here today are a couple young guys, Mark Stossberg, the juggler, who just graduated, was editor of the school paper at Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana. It's a private school. And Jordan Green, who just graduated from Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and both of them have worked as part of their college programs around the country.
A couple of them in here, John, Steve.
Yeah, Brad got back like 5 seconds or so from his...
This time, the teacher will move you near them or they'll ask you to leave. I know it's hard here. We're sorry that we have that situation, but that's what we got to deal with, folks. And I hope that you won't let the heat deter you from the experience that you're going to get to have this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed the day so far. And now you're going to get to hear a poet and author, writer who grew up in Centertown, has studied all over the world at different universities. He's going to tell you a little bit about those experiences. He has a new book that he's debuting here with us today, and that's a very special honor. I hope you understand that. This will be the first time he's going to let folks have a chance to get a hold of this book. He's going to share some of that with us today. Ron Whitehead.
I knew then as I knew before and after that I've never abandoned song. I've never quit listening to the gift of God, sweet music, and even if I couldn't in public, at least in private, I'd keep on singing, and well, us boys of us with Tim, Slim, and me, well, I believe all our lives were saved more than once by music, and I mean every kind of music. We heard it all. Church music and funeral dirges, as Mama and her sister Jody Bell sang far back as I can remember. I see people climbing on coffins, including Pappy, trying to keep Mammy from leaving him behind. Her line there in the pine. Yes, we heard gospel and blues, and we heard country, mixed with traditional folk mountain Appalachian, going back to Ireland and Scotland and Wales, and we listened to Jimmy Rogers and Hank Williams, and Woody Guthrie and Raymond Winter and Lowe's Raker and the Montgomery Brothers, and Brother Matthew's gospel quartet with Mrs. Jones banging on that piano like I'd never heard in no Baptist church, and I got excited. Oh, Lord, can music make me feel this good? Brought tears to my boy eyes and made goosebumps run all up and down my back and all over my body. Made my flat top hair stand up straight and tall without no bushwhacks on it. And then came Elvis and my parents said, turn it off. They were glued to and couldn't move, eye staring in disbelief, but excited like what in the world is this? It seemed like everybody felt that way. More excited than ashamed, wanted to be part of that energy that we all know somehow, like music itself, must be a gift from some greater source. And we all mourn his passing, but I'm jumping ahead, because for our generation, Bob Dylan and the Beatles did it too, and in Slim's yellow Volkswagen traveled through one-lane Ohio County bridges at the speed of light. With windows down, we kept the stereo loud as it would go, because we loved music, because whenever we had to turn from the pain of life, the suffering of living, we always turned to music, as if music redirected us towards God, as if music came from God, and every time we turned to music, life became bearable again. We thought about resurrection again. We thought about Jesus again. And that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come. Okay, I think some of y'all heard somebody sing up here earlier today. His name is Stan Snodgrass. And a couple of pieces in this book were based on Stan. Stan used to have a little yellow Volkswagen, and he drove it like about a cat out of Hades. Jasper Joyce. When they turned off Main Street onto the winding lane that led to the tent, his dad turned the Jimmy's lights off and said, don't say anything. He called himself Bone Boy and his brother Muscle Boy. His brother was a miniature of his dad, who instead of Edwin could have been called Hercules. His dad was tall and solid as rock. He believed in physical discipline, so when he hoped his boys could do something, they did it. The light was bright inside the tent, the door was open wide to let in air. The night was hot, and Bone imagined that it was hotter inside. Most of the people inside had walked. There were only a few cars outside the tent. They pulled up close. It was a moonless, starless night, so they weren't seen as they parked. His father's father, Jasper Pappy, was standing at the microphone on the podium. His dad turned the car off. Jasper was preaching. But he that believeth not shall be damned, and these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Jasper was a coal miner, a farmer, and a holy roller preacher. He was built like a hinged stone. The inner lights reflecting off the green canvas tent were casting a glow about him. Or was he casting the glow? If not casting, he was certainly digging for something hidden, pausing deep in this green cavern to proclaim. Was I wrong? Does this path not lead to the light? But the light blinds my eyes. If I seek it in the mountains, no, I must go down into the dark. Eternal peace lies there. Heavy hammer, break me the way to the heart chamber of what lies hidden there. Jasper's voice was getting louder. He was beginning to shout. Something Bone didn't understand was happening. He got a bitter taste in his mouth as he watched his grandfather lose control. Jasper was shouting louder and louder and becoming animated like Bone had never seen it. He imagined the bitter iron taste to be the water Jasper told Bone he drank that seeped from the walls deep in the mines. A wailing, moaning sound came from a little woman near the back of the crowded tent. Before her moaning ended, another began, and then another, echoing through the tent, escaping out to bone and muscle and their dad, through them, out into the dark night. In the midst of the wailing, a man shouted, and then another, until all the men were shouting, all the women wailing, and now a child's voice sang out in the chaos. Now more children, a chorus. Everyone stands, some on chairs. Now a guitar joins in. Now two, now three guitars. People begin to move, to shift and sway. Now Bone hears a piano. Now a tambourine. The wailing, shouting, singing, playing grows louder and louder, stirring the night. The swaying turns to swooping. Dogs bark, then howl. Lights in the center town flash on. Windows and doors open and heads peek out. Visions of the second coming dance in Bone's head. He stares fixedly into the tent, nearly hypnotized. An old man swooping has turned into hopping. Another swooper becomes a hopper, then another. Women and children start hopping too. Bone doesn't understand the shouting. What words are these? Strange, unfamiliar. He doesn't recognize any of them. A young woman falls down and starts rolling in the dirt, jabbering strange words. Others fall and roll. Everyone is swooping and hopping and rolling, shouting and wailing and singing unknown sounds and words woven with the reckless music. A dark figure appears from the back of the tent, carrying a large black box. The figure approaches Jasper, who is hopping and shouting on the podium. Jasper reaches into the black box and pulls out a rattlesnake. Oh, Pappy! And he kisses the snake on his mouth. Oh, my Pappy! Bone screams inside himself, swaying and swooping and hopping and rolling and shouting and wailing and singing louder and louder and wilder and wilder. The dark figure leads the black box to men and women who take snakes, rattlers, copperheads, water moccasins from the box and perform the Jasper snake kiss. Bone sees a man who looks like he swallowed his tongue. He is the tongue swallower. He makes no sound. He is rigid, white as a ghost, foaming at the mouth. Bone's dad starts the car and without turning on the lights, drives away. Then at the middle school here at 2 o'clock, and I'm reading some different pieces tonight, and I want to give you a little more information on the actual event. On this sunny summer Saturday, second half of 20th century, July 14, late morning in the sleepy little mining farming community of Beaver Dam, the center of Ohio County, located in the western reaches of the lusciously green and morbidly black state of Kentucky, the week-long centennial celebration was climaxing with many events. Games, races, a parade, a carnival, and what turned out to be the most ominously exciting and notoriously successful event in Beaver Dam's history, in western Kentucky history. Well, in Kentucky history, the Beaver Dam Rocking Chair Marathon. Now, I want to say this, as people have already started reading this book. Review copies have been going out, and if this book and my new CD are being reviewed in Japan, Australia, England, the Netherlands, and Belgium, and in a lot of places around America, and it's already started getting some real positive attention. I want to let you know that this is a fiction based on, born out of an actual event. When you read this book, you'll probably recognize some of the people in it. I'm sure you'll recognize them from their photos. Some of them have grown up a little bit since then. And the guys who published the book have a wonderful illustrator, a young man from Philadelphia, who I'm just real happy with the job that he's done and that they've done. So, the work of fiction, sometimes I've taken stories and people and changed their names and their identity maybe a little bit. Other times I've combined maybe 2 or 3 characters into one, 2 or 3 events into one. This is part 1 of 2 parts. This will take you up to the midway point in the Beaver Dam Rocking Chair Marathon. The next, and one thing I do in this is to tell stories that will begin for people who haven't grown up here, who don't know about this wonderful place, Ohio County, to be born into and raised up in. I want people to begin to get an emotional sense of what it's like to live here. The good things and the bad things. and we've all had both experiences. 10 o'clock Saturday morning is starting time for what has already been christened the first Kentucky State Rocking Chair Marathon. Participants, families, and friends anxious to begin started arriving as early as daybreak, which this time of year on Central Standard Time comes at about 6 a.m. Opening remarks and rules of the game are to be made by the friendly, cheerful, downright positive, energetic, red-headed, freckled, tall, slender, young businessman, mayor of Beaver Dam, member of Ohio County's only Catholic church, Smiling Don Chapman. Don Chapman is the man who came up with the novel idea and almost single-handedly organized the entire Beaver Dam Centennial and Rocking Chair Marathon. And if any of y'all know who that person is, and his photo is in this book, I have definitely changed his identity and a few things about him. Okay, I'm not going to go any further with that. The main character in this book is a young man who's recently been married to an attractive, a beautiful, I have to say, young woman. And his name in the book is Bone, the Bone Man. It's a name he gave himself when he was a kid, being the skinny thing that he was. And he named his younger brother Muscle Man and Muscle Boy when he was a kid. And then he created another brother who he called Brain Man. And I've written some stories about Brain Man that have been published in other books and magazines. And I'm also thinking about writing a separate book about him. Arriving. So where is Bone? 30 minutes till starting time and no sign of him. Well, he's between Fordsville and Dundee, riding fast, deep in thought, on his way home again. An experience he both longed for and dreaded, to return home. As far back as he can go, Bone had always loved to travel. He wanted to see the world. He wanted to escape, to adventure. Growing up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, some days maybe 3, 4, 5 cars or trucks would be all the noise he'd hear. Except, of course, for crows in the distance, cows in the field, or behind the barn mooing for hay and feeding, milking time, or pigs, or goats, or horses, or birds, or bees, or cats, or dogs, or the wind in the trees, and the orange sagebrush, or a baseball glove popping when he and his younger brother Muscle played catch, or screaming, arguing kids when he and his brother would fight with their younger sisters. All family sounds and sounds of nature, all so familiar to Bone. So familiar that time and again he longed for new sounds from the outside world. But now Bone has escaped. Since 17, he's been gone. Now, once again, for maybe the 4th or 5th time in as many years, he's heading home. And heading home, he's lost in the past. Bone didn't remember ever hugging his mother until one orange fog summer morning. He was 17 and leaving home for good, for Arizona, for the West. His mom hugged him long and hard that morning. 17 years of wild love passed in that hug. 17 years of heart-bleeding, gut-stabbing pain passed in that hug. For 17 years he protected his mother from his father's wrath. He was the only one who had the guts to stand up to that giant of a man. 17 years had come to an end in a hug. The deluge came, no stopping. Hours and miles of bright red tears paved the interstate from Kentucky to Oklahoma. To this day, that road is painted red with his bright red tears of self-pity, of never being enough for anyone, of grief, of release, of forgiveness, of love. Has it always been this way with families? Was his mom's experience the same? Was her dad that way? He'd like to know. He loved her dad, his granddad. This very road he's traveling on now, he traveled so many times as a boy with Granddaddy Dick. Not many deer crossed the road then, but life was wild. Bone remembers the call and his mama crying. Bone was behind the barn and it was hot, hotter than this hot Saturday morning. He was praying for him to live, to be all right. Bone was 9, just a boy. His granddaddy was special to him, real special. He was, he was wild, like the deer that appeared and vanished this morning as Bone was doing 90 on Highway 261 between Hardinsburg and Fordsville on his way home, on his way to the Beaver Dam Rocking Chair Marathon. Bone Boy rode that road so many times with Granddaddy Dick, stopping at Clancy's Grocery to get him soda crackers and ginger ale because Bone got car sick, but Granddaddy only laughed and smiled and talked to Bone like he was real and not just a kid. Bone remembers a six-pack of beer on the floor in the back and a pint of whiskey in the glove box. Granddaddy was real. When he breathed, the earth breathed. He moved things. He was a grader operator building the first Watterson Expressway around Louisville. He was a barber. He cut hair. He sang and played guitar and banjo. He made records and traveled and sang on radio stations. He yodeled. He cleared the land, the rundown farm he bought that had belonged to his mom and dad, Bone's great-grandparents. He went fox and coon hunting with his friends in the middle of the night, always drinking whiskey and telling stories that made the men laugh. Bone knows. He went with them whenever he was allowed. Granddaddy Dick didn't preach, but his life was a sermon. He was Spirit, Holy Spirit, no matter what anyone says. The windows are down and Bone's moving fast, going home, headed to the marathon, and he's taking a hard curve with the long wind and the tall green trees and the turquoise sky, and that energy comes to him, and it fills him, and he knows what his granddaddy felt, that energy of life and sex and love and family and longing, and Bone smiles and he cries. At 9:30 a.m. on this hot July morn, he senses and he knows that somehow his grandfather's spirit is still here with him, and his head and his body want to explode. But he holds on to the wheel with all his might, moving from day into night and back to light, finally arriving home. I've got a lot of family here, and I had no idea what it would be like to come back. I wanted to release this book in my home, where I grew up. This is where the action takes place. If you're all invited, by the way, to Louisville, to Holly Cook Booksellers, it's Sunday at 4 o'clock on Bardstown Road in Louisville. They're having a release publication party for me up there as well. Okay. You know, I've had the good fortune and opportunity to travel all over the world. I'll be going on a reading tour this year and giving readings all over America. I've been invited to Europe several times to give readings, and everywhere I go, people tell me when they hear the stories, they say, well, I would love to have had the experiences you had growing up. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've had, as I've gotten older, I've been able to look back with some amount, not too much, amount of detachment, and begin to really appreciate the beauty, the love of all those experiences. But there's a lot of pain involved there too. Johnny Powers. Johnny's dad had one hand and one leg. Well, actually, old man Powers had two legs, but one was wood. He had a big purple mole on the side of his nose. He smelled like stinkweed, and after his stroke, he drooled, and his limp was worse. Everybody said he was mean, but the night he burned up, when his house burned down, Bone saw his wood leg burning, a bright purple flame on what had been the living room floor, and he began to wonder. Johnny is rocking behind Bone to his left. Two of Johnny's 7 brothers are rocking at the end of the line. The Powers farm was next to Uncle Pete's, and Bone knew that Uncle Pete had acquired 150 of his acres from Old Man Powers during the Depression. Johnny was just born, and there was no food with the drought and the Depression, and his mom's milk had dried up. Johnny's mom was a tiny woman. Hard to believe she had 8 kids. Benjamin was the last one. She died giving birth to him, but Johnny was the oldest, the firstborn, and he was starving, and he was crying hard. His hunger was so strong. So late one night, Old Man Powers slipped out of the house and crossed the fields to Uncle Pete's. He said, Pete, my boy's starving. He needs milk. You got a milk cow and I got land. I'll trade you half my land for that cow right now, tonight. Uncle Pete just stared at him for a while. Uncle Pete was a little slow. Not stupid, just a little slow. He was in his Scotch tape phase. Someone had told him that if he would tape his nose up, it wouldn't run so bad. He had allergies and his nose drained constantly. He poked a hole in the tape over each nostril with an ice pick to get air. He wore tape for nearly 10 years before giving up on it. Uncle Pete finally spoke. He told Old Man Powers, all right, and they traded. Went to town in a week and drew up the deed. 150 acres for a milk cow, saved Johnny's life. Old Man Powers and his wife had 8 kids, all boys. Had them all in 8 years, one right after the other. Farmers who had anything back then had lots of chickens, and they'd wander from one farm to the next looking for food and just wandering like chickens do, and at night they'd find a safe place to roost wherever they could. The Powers had a trap door in the living room floor. At night they'd get a fishing pole out, put a piece of soft corn on the hook, and drop it through the trap door. The house sat about 3 feet off the ground like most farmhouses do. Pretty soon they'd catch a chicken. Oh, it put up a fight, but not for long. Once they got it up through the trap door, old man Power snapped its neck to shut it up. They'd pluck the feathers fast and burn them in the kitchen stove so there'd be no trace. Johnny's dad had one hand and one leg. Well, actually, old man Powers had 2 legs, but one was wood. He had a big purple mole on the side of his nose. He smelled like stinkweed, and after his stroke he drooled, and his limp was worse. Everybody said he was mean, but the night he burned up, when his house burned down, Bones saw his wood leg burning, a bright purple flame on what had been the living room floor, and he began to wonder. Okay, this next one, it's got a little bit of rough language in it, so just bear with me, but it's all straight from the horse's mouth. Mamie Woosley, and this is not my sister, by the way. Velvet wanted to clarify that. By Sunday morning, Mamie Woosley was being referred to as the KFC lady. In the deep hours, 3 to 4 a.m. Sunday morning, she had taken turn and told her story. Mamie's a big woman, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, and weighs probably 180 pounds. She has bleach blonde hair stacked high with a red bow on top, and when my awareness drifts, it looks like a heaping stack of small, lightly done pancakes with strawberries on top. She's silhouetted to me as she sits 2 rockers in front, angled to the left. Her breasts are larger than softballs or grapefruit. They're more the size of cannonballs. Her complexion Saturday morning had been rosy, and she had been at least superficially cheerful, but after midnight Saturday night, the color released itself from her face, and her eyes became dark and sunk in like an old grave. Her skin became more gray than white, and something akin to panic and terror seemed to grip both her and her rocker. Her rocking became jerky, almost violent. As time passed, she slouched down as if heavy weights were being slowly lowered onto her back. She finally had to talk, apparently hoping to relieve the burden. Well, I almost hate to, but I need to say something else. I feel like I might suffocate. Ain't y'all hot? I feel like I can't breathe and I can't stop sweating. She unbuttoned 2 buttons on her blouse while she paused for 2 or 3 minutes. You know, I'm really sort of glad I did this. I was so sick of my life and myself, I just wanted to die. The only time it seemed like I had any peace was at work serving up that old fried chicken. The more hours I could get, the happier I was. I didn't have to listen to those screaming, arguing kids, not to mention my old man, like living with Satan himself. I tell you, I almost hate to say it, but I'll be glad when all this wonderful life is done with. All this damn pain, days bleeding into days. Who ever heard of a weekend? Sounds like something in a dream or some storybook. Weekend. Weeks don't ever end for me, and that's son of a bitch I live with, if you call it living. I know he's messing with my Rachel and her only 14. Him and his black dog calls him Jesus. The nerve that man's got. No, I wouldn't call it nerve either. I think he's just empty except for some kind of evil streak that runs in him. Wish to hell I never married him. But after Paul died in the mine explosion, I didn't know what to do. With 6 little kids, no insurance. Of course, we never had the money for that. With all the bills and the kids, what on coal miners pay, we couldn't afford no luxuries. Had hard enough time with food and a place to live, and he started hanging around like some old mangy dog in heat. He'd come to the screen door and just stand there staring in, and I told him to go away, and after a while he would. But then the next day he'd show up again, same thing, wanting to know if he could help out. Help out. I knew what he wanted all right, and then there were the nights. I couldn't hardly bear Paul being gone. I was so lonely. Paul had been so good to me. Sure, he was rough, but he weren't mean. He didn't beat me and the kids like that dirty son of a bitch I'm trapped with now. She paused for a minute to catch her breath and dig deeper. You know why I'm doing this stupid, crazy thing we're all doing right now? Cause one night last week it was late, I was sitting in the kitchen down at Crono's, where we live. I was sitting in the kitchen holding a washcloth with ice in it over my eye cause he done got drunk. And when I come in the front door from work, he and Rachel was coming in the back door, and I said, "Where the hell you two been?" He got mad and hit me in the face with his fist and knocked me back into the front door. So I was sitting in the kitchen, and he come in and threw the newspaper down on the table and said, "Look at this." And I did, and it was something about this rocking chair thing, and he said, "You're going to be in this." and you're going to win the money, else don't come home. I didn't say nothing. I didn't even look at him, and he said real low and mean like, did you hear me, woman? I said you're going to be in this, and if you don't win, I don't ever want to see your ugly face again. She didn't say anything for about 2 minutes, then straining, nearly choking. So you see, that's why I'm here, and I'm sick to death worried, because I'm tired, and I don't know how long I can hold out. And I know if I don't make it, I don't know what's going to happen, because he's been getting a lot worse lately, and he's tired of me and my complaining. And I think he's thinking about running off with my Rachel, and I'm afraid she might go, and she got no idea what she's getting into with that devil. And she's my oldest, she's my baby, and I don't want her hurt. Tears are flowing down her swollen face. And it's only going to get worse, and I want him gone, but I don't want to lose my baby. Sobbing, she stops talking, but keeps slow rocking. You know, there's this cardboard cutout from some guy from Star Wars in that room back there. And every time I turn around to get a drink, I think there's a security guard standing inside the door. I guess I'm a little paranoid. Okay. The coal miner. There was a man in the land of coal whose name was Lucian Wallace, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him one son and one daughter. He had an old black car and a gray and white second-hand mobile home. He was a coal miner. He was a coal miner who lived a few miles out of Beaver Dam, out on Highway 69, on the road to Rochester. He lived close to his coal mine, Ken Underground, number 1. The coal miner was lean, gaunt, hollow-eyed, like he was hungry, maybe starving, like he was haunted every second of every day, of every night of his life by the thought that his mind might collapse or explode with him deep in the mine, eating lunch or digging or throwing lumps of coal at rats. He was haunted by death. He was haunted by life. He was dark, a darkling great man. The pores of his skin were filled with coal dust, so that even after his shower, when he came off shift, even after scrubbing, the dust lay deep in his pores, deep in his lungs. His eyes always watered. He could never get all the dust out of them, but for all the darkness there is life. For in his watery turquoise eyes there runs a river, a deep blue-green river, filled with a golden compassion for his children, for his wife, for his mother, for life. His mother is the bootlegger. His children, his daughter Edwina and his son Carol, have been with him from the start. Carol stands facing his father. When Lucian rocks forward, Carol pops a wet washcloth in his face. When Lucian rocks back, Edwina yells, "Wake up, Daddy," in his ear. The coal mines pay little. Pay better than most in this coal-barren wilderness, but they pay little. Not enough for anything other than food, utilities, an old black car, and a gray and white second-hand mobile home that the wind shakes and whistles through. The coal miner has taken one of his 2 weeks annual paid vacation to try and win some money so he can take his family on the vacation he's always promised but has never been able to afford. If he can win, even come in second place, he will take them on the 2nd week of his vacation to the Gulf of Mexico, to Panama City. Okay, I'm going to wind up with this one. I don't want to keep y'all here too long. I do want to encourage each of you to buy at least 10 copies of this book and give them as gifts. Without blinking, Zen in the art of driving 100 miles per hour past Bronny Taylor and others on Ohio County's Highway 69 one-lane bridge between Beaver Dam and Centertown. Part 3, Down and Out in Kentucky. The bridge. That's just the title. The head must bow and the back will have to bend wherever the workers may go. A few more days and the trouble all will end in the field where the sugar canes grow. A few more days for to tote the weary load, no matter, 'twill never be light. A few more days till we totter on the road, then my old Kentucky home, good night. At 3 a.m. on a hot summer night in western Kentucky, my eyes flash open and I'm on the floor of the yellow farmhouse across the field from Mom and Dad's in the middle of nowhere. Not able to sleep, I dozed off for a second when someone turns on the light and it's blinding my eyes, and here I am at the end of time. Down and out in Kentucky, here I am wondering whether life's worth living, all the pain. And someone's turned on a light and it's blinded my eyes, and I'm a broken man buried in a tomb of self-pity. I'm failing like no others dare fail, but at 3 a.m. on this hot summer night, on this plywood floor, as my eyes adjust and I see the room filled with lightning bugs coming through broken windows, and they're all around me, filling the room with golden light. And almost in a dream, I see Slim, and we're in the yellow Volkswagen doing 100 on Highway 69 between Beaver Dam and Centertown, and the car's coming the other way, and Slim and I glance at each other, and in that glance I see his struggle, his fear, his anger, his defeat, his defiance, his will, his desire to succeed, his willingness to suffer, to pay the price, to see his dream become real. And we look back to the road, to Bronnie Taylor's car, and we're doing 100, headed towards the one-lane bridge. And Bronnie Taylor ain't slowing down, and neither are we. Eyes steady and clear, and we've seen death and been told we're crazy, but we're holding at 100. And without blinking, we meet Bronnie Taylor at the center of the one-lane bridge, not a breath of air between cars and walls. And as we pass, without blinking, I see Bronnie Taylor's mouth drop open and fall to his chest. And in that moment of passing, of seeing, I know that like Slim, I will pull myself up off this dirty, rotten floor and live again. Thank you all. I'm going to plop myself down over here. As y'all pick up your 10 copies of the books, just bring them right over. I'll be glad to sign.
We have dessert, and we'll be bringing some punch out. We're so glad that you all came to visit with us tonight. And Ronnie, we appreciate you sharing with our students and with the community tonight. Everybody eat and go clean food.
I told Edwina thank you personally. I wanted to tell her publicly too. Thank you, Edwina, for setting all this up. Kentucky Day, all the hard work you do for that, and plus this event for me. Thank you.